Hello everyone, and thank you very much for the invite, and my thank you for your presentation and all the work that you have been doing in Finland for the animals. Today I'm going to talk about the proposal on fundamental animal rights, the background of the proposal, and I'm also going to go through the content section by section, and then we're going to discuss about the advocacy strategy, how we've been trying to advance this politically. So let's start with the background. Even though we have more legislation, both in the Finland and also in the EU level, that's aimed at protecting animals, still, more animals are being used and killed than ever before. And this means that suffering is increasing. The legislation is not working as it's supposed to. Right? And I think there are several reasons for this, and here are a few of them. First of all, the legislation is not reflecting the current scientific evidence that we have on animal interests, their welfare requirements, their behavioral needs. The law is lagging behind. And secondly, the law is prioritizing human interests over even basic needs of animals. The law is often called animal welfare law or animal protection law. But I think that instead of giving animals protection, the law is creating a framework for animal exploitation to continue and expand. The legislation is explicitly allowing many practices that are harmful for animals. It's legal to restrict animal movement. It's legal to restrict their social relationships. And it's legal to restrict their natural behaviors. And also it's legal to kill animals in many violent ways. And there is no legal tools to assess whether the use of animals and whether the killing of animals is necessary in the first place. We don't have that kind of assessment in our legislation. And where those protective norms do exist in the legislation, they are not enforced in practice. There are no legal standing for animals. Animals cannot, there are no access to justice for them. We cannot represent animals in the court in the same way that we can represent small children, or in the same way that environmental organizations can represent environment in certain cases. And finally, there is this structural imbalance in our law, in our legislation, our legal system. As you know, our legal system has hierarchy, and on the highest level of that hierarchy we have constitutional norms. And constitutional norms are protecting human economic interests. And at the same time, animal welfare legislation is done on ordinary law level. And it means that when these interests are in conflict, human economic interests protected in the Constitution will prevail. It's impossible to truly balance these conflicting interests. So this is why we need structural change in our legal system. Birgit Wahlberg is the scholar whose idea was this proposal on fundamental animal rights in Finland. She gathered a group of legal scholars, and together they formed this working group who started drafting this proposal for fundamental animal rights. And when the proposal was done, when it was ready, they were thinking, what's the best way to promote this kind of proposal? And they decided to found an organization called the Finnish Animal Rights Law Society. And then in 2023, we wanted to bring this proposal to the political field. So we made it into citizens' initiative. In Finland, every citizen can propose a law, if it gathers, if they are able to gather 50,000 signatures behind it. So that's what we did, and we were successful. We were able to submit it to the parliament, and as of today, the initiative is under review by the Constitutional Law Committee that Mai was telling us about. And then, the structure and the content of the proposal. Our proposal consists of 5 sections: protection of animals, safeguarding fundamental animal rights, fundamental rights of wild animals, fundamental rights of animals dependent on human care, such as those that we use as companions or those that we use in animal agriculture, and finally, prohibition of animal breeding. And the first 2 sections include procedural rights, and the other sections include substantial rights. And the procedural rights are kind of giving framework for these substantial rights to work in practice. The first section, I have highlighted the most important parts of these sections. The first section includes precautionary principle, which means that all animals shall be presumed to be sentient unless otherwise proved. According to this section, the interests and individual needs of animals must be taken into account in decision making when there is a significant impact on animal lives. And finally, animals have legal standing, which is exercised by their legal representative. And all of these provisions here, sentences, they are important, but if you can only remember one, it's the access to justice. It's the most important one. And Section 2 lays down 2 more legal principles: the necessity principle and proportionality principle. According to the necessity principle, fundamental animal rights may only be limited if it's necessary for human rights or animal rights. And the proportionality principle means that limitations have to be as minor as possible with regards to the pursued aim. So these animal rights that we are proposing, they are not absolute. They can be limited in certain cases. And the most important thing about the Section 2, if you can only remember one, is the necessity principle. And the fundamental rights of wild animals, what we are proposing here, the first thing is that these animals have right to life and right to live in freedom in their natural habitat. They have right to receive help and right to be euthanized. And the animals dependent on human care, according to our proposal, they have right to life as well as the right to express natural behaviors and have their basic needs fulfilled. Right to experience and express positive emotions, right to be protected against and free from fear, pain, distress, and suffering caused by humans. Right to food and drink, right to suitable living environment, right to receive appropriate treatment, and right to be euthanized. And as Mike Kivelä said, most of these already exist in our current legislation, but they are not enforced in practice. So by lifting them up to the constitutional level, they would get the normative force. And the final section, this one is already in our legislation as well, but not enforced. The prohibition of harmful animal breeding. According to this section, an animal may not be bred in such a manner that the breeding would cause the animal or the animal's offspring physical or psychological harm or prevent the natural behavior of the offspring. And then the core elements of our proposal. First of all, this is a proposal, constitutional proposal. It means that if animal rights are in constitution, they would guide and shape all the other legislation. It will also be binding to the courts and government officials. And then we are proposing the protection on the fundamental interests of animals. And through the necessity principle, we are trying to include necessity assessment to our legal system. And this necessity principle also has this dynamic nature. It allows legal standards and societal standards to evolve over time. What is seen necessary today may not be necessary in the future. And finally, for these rights to be enforceable, we are proposing animals to have legal standing, access to justice. And then our advocacy strategy and how we've been trying to get political attention to this matter. As I previously mentioned, we turned this proposal into citizens' initiative in 2023. And we built campaign around this citizen initiative. We had social media campaigning, advertisements on streets and on public transport, and we were giving television and radio interviews, and also campaigning in the streets, asking people to sign our proposal. And to be honest, at first we didn't really believe that we would get all the needed amount of signatures. We were preparing to that we should do this several times before we would get the needed amount of people to sign this for us. And I remember when our vice president Visa Kurki was giving a radio interview, and he was asked that, what will you do if this goes through? What will you do then? And we hadn't had any discussions about it. and then still, Visa very confidently said that, of course, then we'll start meeting with the politicians and so on. And then when the interview ended, Visa texted to our campaign group and asked, what are we going to do if this happens really? And it did happen. We were able to submit this initiative to the parliament. It was surprising for all of us. Every milestone that we get, 10,000 and then 20,000 signatures, it was amazing. And I think there are a few factors behind our successful campaign. First of all, this campaign was proposal was originally drafted by legal scholars, those who were specializing in animal rights issues or the lack of rights, and also we as lawyers, we didn't know how to market this kind of initiative. We didn't have the expertise, but some marketing professionals wanted to give their expertise and knowledge to this campaign, and I think that's one thing that led to this be as successful as it was. And also we got support from NGO field. Animal protection organizations were creating their own campaigns around this topic, and even environmental organizations were doing the same. And of course also we have to thank the public for signing this initiative. I think that the public was, or some of them were ready for structural change in our legal system. And at some point, the citizens' initiative went viral, and I think we got the needed amount of signatures in a few days, eventually. And here we are giving the initiative to the parliament. Here is Birgitta Wahlberg, the one whose idea this was in the first place, Visa Kurki, me, and our marketing expertise. And then we started doing what Visa said that we would do when he was giving the interview. We started meeting with politicians, and as of today, we have met with over 60 of members of the parliament from all parties, and including their leaders and those who work in ministries. And we have also had dialogue with NGOs, and it's important for us to have discussions about this proposal and its possible effects and outcomes with those who may not want to see this kind of development in animal protection, such as hunters associations, farmers union, and those who own the farms and work in the industry. And all in all, I think all the discussions that we've been having, they have been really good. And when we are meeting with the politicians, we are not trying to win the argument. We are not trying to say that we are right and you have been wrong. And we are trying to plant seeds of an idea for longer-term changes. And of course, when we are having these discussions, we are trying to explain to them that why the current legislation is not working. What are the problems with it, within it, and so on. But of course, as we all know, not everyone thinks that animal rights issues are important thing. Not everyone cares about animals in that way as we do. So we have been framing our proposal as part of solutions to environmental crises, to climate crisis, to public health issues that we have. And also we are explaining then that the recognition of animal protection on constitutional level is already global legal trend. In Europe, we have already 4 countries, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and Belgium, who have included animal protection to their constitution. However, mere constitutional recognition doesn't mean that it has any practical impact on animal life. We also need other elements to be included. And then we have been reminding them of the EU obligations that we have, that Mike Kivelä was also referring to, that according to the Article 13 of the TFEU, animal welfare should be taken into account in when member states are framing their policies and so on. And also we are reminding them of the historical evolution of rights, that historically the way to end oppression of certain group is to give them rights. And this argument, of course, it's not for everyone. And then we are also telling them about these statements that Constitutional Law Committee has been given, because Constitutional Law Committee is seen as authority, some kind of authority for these politicians. But are fundamental animal rights realistic? We know that the use of animals is deeply tied to strong political, economic, and cultural interests of us humans. It's not easy to work with these issues. The resistance it's huge. But at the same time, we all know that the large-scale use of animals and the weak legal status of animals, it's linked to these crises, environmental crises, climate crisis, and so on. So we know that we cannot continue treating animals as we have been. And what is needed, we also need to, as was said in one presentation in the first day of this conference, we need to build alliances. We need to create movement around this topic. I think this objective to have fundamental animal rights recognized in our constitution, it should be also an issue for environmental organizations and other organizations. And we have already gained support from animal protection organizations from Finland. They have taken this issue as their issue as well. And when the next election comes, is one of their key goals for this, what they are trying to get politicians to understand. And some environmental organizations have already something similar in mind. And even some conservative expert bodies in Finland that have been very welfaristic in the past, even some of them are increasingly interested in this kind of structural change. So I think there is some hope, and nevertheless we will continue this work, and we are ready to launch as many initiatives as needed, and yes, and hopefully we'll one day see a day maybe in Finland or in some other country that animals' thick rights are recognized in their constitution. Thank you so much.